Early in a relationship, closeness feels effortless. You're naturally drawn to one another. Time together unfolds without planning. Intimacy shows up multiple times a week. There's a rhythm to it that almost feels automatic, as if the relationship is carrying itself forward. But within just a few years, that rhythm begins to shift. What once felt spontaneous becomes less often. For most couples, intimacy settles into a once a week dynamic. Nothing is necessarily wrong, yet something subtle has changed, and most couples can feel it, even if they can't quite name it. Fast forward several more years into the relationship, and the connection drifts even further. What used to happen on a weekly basis now becomes more occasional, a few times a month, maybe even less. Not because the love is gone or because one person stopped caring, but because life quietly replaced intentional connection. And this is the part that catches people off guard. Most couples at this point think the problem is related to attraction or compatibility, or maybe they start telling themselves that we're not meant to be after all. But in reality, what's missing is something far more practical and far more solvable. Connection doesn't just disappear overnight, it becomes unstructured. And when something important is left unstructured, it slowly gets replaced by everything else competing for its time, energy, and attention. So instead of trying to fix the relationship, what if the real solution was much simpler? What if you just needed a way to consistently create the space where connection can happen again, naturally, predictably, and without pressure? Well, welcome to Mars Venus Coaching. I am your gender intelligence coach, Clay Smith. And in today's episode, we are exploring the Connection Night, a simple, intentional framework designed to help couples restore clarity, deepen their connection, and create consistent space for meaningful interaction. You'll learn what a connection night is, how to set it up in a way that feels natural and sustainable, and why this little shift can significantly improve communication, emotional safety, and overall strengthen your partnership. We're going to take a look at something most couples aren't considering in this area: how the natural hormonal patterns that support attraction and passion shift over time, and how to intentionally reintroduce the conditions that allow them to return. From a gender intelligence perspective, when connection is created in the right way, chemistry follows. By the end of this episode, you'll also get some clear, respectful ways to invite your partner into this practice so it feels more collaborative rather than forced. The insights today are primarily sourced from John's book on Mars and Venus in the bedroom. If you'd like a deeper understanding of how to reclaim intimacy and a gender intelligence perspective, I highly recommend it as a resource. Let's now begin by acquiring clarity on what a connection actually is, and just as importantly, what it's not. A connection night is a designated time set aside for you and your partner to be together without distractions, interruptions, or competing priorities. The kids are in bed, the environment is settled. This evening is intentionally reserved for the relationship. At its core, a connection night creates space for physical and emotional closeness without pressure, expectations, or performance. It's not what has to happen, it's creating the conditions for connection can happen. From a gender intelligence perspective, this experience is often most powerful when the masculine energy takes the lead in setting it up by creating a sense of structure, intention, and emotional safety around it. When that space is established, it allows her to relax, soften, and naturally reconnect with her feminine side. Guys, this doesn't need to be complicated. Dim the lights, close the curtains, light a couple candles, put some music on that creates that relaxation feel. And what you're doing here is creating a space that feels different from the rest of the day, that signals to her nervous system that it's safe to relax, unwind, and most importantly, receive. Okay, guys, let's talk about your role in this space. Your role is to take initiative, to lead with presence, care, and intention. This is where many men can make a subtle shift. Instead of moving towards an outcome, your focus is to create an experience. And you begin doing this by non sexual physical touch, a gentle back massage, a foot rub, running your fingers through her hair, loosening the tension in her shoulders. As you do this, you're helping her body move into a state of relaxation where she can begin to feel safe, open, and receptive. From a gender intelligence perspective, this is where something important starts happening beneath the surface. For most women, attraction and arousal doesn't start physically, it starts through emotional connection. As she feels emotionally connected through conversation, as she feels nurtured through your presence and physical touch, as the environment signals safety and care, her body will naturally begin producing oxytocin and serotonin. These are the key hormones that support relaxation, bond, and openness to intimacy. This is why taking your time here matters, because you're not necessarily trying to create desire within her, you're creating the conditions where desire can naturally emerge. This is also an opportunity to engage with her simply and authentically. As you're providing her that non sexual physical touch, ask her about her day. Be curious about her experiences. Listen without needing to fix or solve her problems. As she feels seen, heard, and cared for, that emotional connection deepens and her body continues to respond accordingly. And here's what's essential to understand: your role is not to create pressure, your role is to create safety. Because when she feels safe, she can open up. When she opens up, connection becomes natural. Sometimes this is where the experience ends. That's not a requirement for it to lead anywhere in particular. The success of a connection night isn't measured by what happens next. It's measured by the quality of connection you created in that moment. Now, from a gender intelligence perspective, men and women often experience arousal very differently. Understanding this can remove a lot of unnecessary pressure. A helpful way to think about this is men tend to be more like microwave ovens. They can shift into desire quickly, often within a few minutes, but just as quickly shift out of desire. Women, on the other hand, tend to be more like crock pots. They take time to warm up, but once they do, they can stay in that state of arousal and passion much longer. For most women, that warming up process isn't just physical, it's emotional. It's built through feeling safe, feeling connected and experiencing consistent, non sexual physical touch and meaningful conversation. This is why taking 20 to 30 minutes to slow things down, to connect, to nurture that space isn't a delay. It's actually the pathway. When this time is honored, everything else that follows becomes more natural, more enjoyable, and far more intimate. Now, here's something important for men to understand here, especially if a connection night doesn't necessarily lead anywhere physically. That doesn't mean nothing happened. In fact, something very meaningful happened. Sometimes something's being built in this experience, even if you can't see it immediately. From a biological perspective, when a woman feels emotionally connected, safe, and nurtured through conversation and your presence and that non sexual physical touch, her body releases oxytocin and serotonin. Oxytocin is called the bonding hormone. It supports feelings of closeness and trust and openness. Serotonin contributes to the emotional well being and sense of ease. And guys, here's the key: these effects don't just disappear after the evening ends, they begin to carry forward. They begin to accumulate through repeated experiences. Her body starts recognizing this as a space of an opportunity for arousal. So you're building something over time. Now, from a gender intelligence perspective, this is where many men miss the greater picture. They're focused on those immediate results instead of recognizing that the need is to create a long term response from her. And that response is built through consistency. Because the more consistent she feels safe, the more regular feeling she's going to feel connected. The more her body begins to associate you with those feelings of arousal. And that association matters. Over time, this begins to influence her level of openness, desire, and physical responsiveness. Not because it was forced, but because it was cultivated. Because it was built in a way that feels natural and supportive. So instead of asking, why didn't that go anywhere? A more powerful question is, what am I building for us over time? That shift in perspective changes everything. It moves you out of a performance based perspective and creating an intention of connection. Here's another caveat for the men listening: a connection night isn't a transaction. It's not something you do to get laid. Because the moment that becomes I did this for you, so here's what's going to happen for me, the entire dynamic shifts. It no longer feels like intimacy. Actually, it starts to feel like a subtle obligation. And when that happens, the very safety and openness that you've been creating disappears. The environment changes, even if nothing is said out loud. From a biological standpoint, when pressure or expectation enters this space, this can reduce her oxytocin and serotonin levels that are supporting her receptivity. Instead of feeling relaxed and open, she may begin to feel tension or responsibility to pay back her debt. That internal shift makes it harder for her to stay present and receptive. This transactional dynamic also interrupts the very chemistry you're trying to build. When it feels like a transaction, the body shifts into performance mode. When it feels like connection, the body shifts into bonding. So, under that transactional framework, when expectations aren't met, something even more damaging can follow. And that is resentment flu. Now, intimacy is no longer paired with closeness and desire, it starts to get paired with pressure and disappointment. So the goal is never to get anywhere. The goal is to create a space where connection is authentic and where pressure is removed, where both partners can simply be present with each other, and whatever unfolds, unfolds naturally. Now, let's shift gears and talk about her role in the connection night. While his role is just as important to lead the experience, her role is different, but also important. Her role is to receive, to allow herself to step into that space that's being created and to be present within it. Part of receiving begins with communication, being able to express her needs, her preferences, and what helps her feel comfortable. Her role is not to take over the experience, but to offer guidance that supports connection, which helps him lead more effectively and keeps the process collaborative. Here's something important to consider. Many women spend much of their time of their day in a very task oriented, decision making role, leading, organizing, problem solving, managing responsibilities. That energy is valuable, but it can make it difficult to fully relax when it comes time to connect. During a connection night, there's an opportunity for her to shift out of that masculine role and to connect with her feminine energy, which naturally wants to let go of needing to direct or manage the experience. This allows herself to be cared for without having to orchestrate what comes next. Because when she stays in that leadership role, even with good intentions, it can subtly change the dynamic. And over time, he may begin to step back. Not because he doesn't care, but because he senses his role is no longer needed. And from a behavioral standpoint, many men are wired for efficiency. If something's already being handled, there's a natural tendency to just let it be. If she consistently takes over the experience, he may begin to defer. And that leadership that helps create that safe, structured space starts to fade. So her role is not to lead the experience, her role is to allow it, to receive, to meet it with presence, openness, and most importantly, appreciation. A vital part of receiving is also being authentic in the moment. If things begin to progress and she's not quite there yet, she can gently guide the experience, allowing a soft redirection, a playful not yet, or simply guiding his hand to help the rhythm be more aligned with what she's needing. This keeps connection intact while allowing the experience to build naturally. If the evening reaches a point where she's not feeling ready for intimacy, honesty matters, but so does how it's communicated. She can share that she wants connection and she's looking forward to intimacy, while also expressing that tonight might not be the night. When that message is paired with appreciation for his effort, it keeps the experience positive and reinforcing. Another important part of her role is feedback. This isn't performance, but simple, authentic responses. These small verbal cues and soft reactions let him know what feels good and helps guide him so he knows he's on the right track. And that feedback matters more than most people realize. Because when he feels that what he's doing is landing well, it encourages him to slow down, stay present, and continue creating that experience for her. This also builds his self confidence in being able to lead, reinforcing the very dynamic that makes this connection night so successful. When he leads with care and she receives with openness and honesty, that's where the experience becomes aligned. That's where connection and the chemistry that follows can fully come to life. Now, let's take a look at what starts to happen when couples maintain physical intimacy on a regular basis. This isn't just about the moment itself, it's about the ripple effect that it creates over time within the relationship. Consistent intimacy supports emotional closeness, strengthens a couple's bond, and reinforces the sense of being desired by one another. Over time, that shared experience becomes a stabilizing force. Research consistently shows that couples who maintain a healthy sex life often report higher relationship satisfaction and increased happiness. Regular intimacy is associated with more feelings of connection, trust, and strengthening partnership. It also supports that release of oxytocin, which deepens bonding and reduces her cortisol levels. So it's not just emotional, it's a biological dynamic as well. Above all, one of the most subtle but powerful outcomes of regular intimacy is goodwill. When a couple feels physically and emotionally connected, they tend to extend more grace towards one another. Small frustrations don't land as heavily. Little annoyances are less likely to escalate. There's more patience, more understanding, a greater willingness to assume positive intent of one another. In contrast, when intimacy becomes infrequent or absent, couples begin to feel more disconnected. That disconnection can show up as irritability, distance, or increased sensitivity to small issues. Things that once felt manageable now become magnified. Not because the problems themselves are bigger, but because the connection that softened those problems has weakened. There's also evidence that couples who maintain regular physical intimacy tend to stay together longer. While intimacy alone doesn't determine the success of a relationship, it does play a significant role in maintaining closeness, satisfaction, and commitment. It becomes the way that couples continually reinforce their bond. And perhaps most importantly, consistent intimacy creates a positive feedback loop. The more you feel connected, the more open you are to intimacy. And the more intimacy you experience, the more you're feeling connected. That pattern, that cycle builds momentum, helping couples stay aligned, engaged, and emotionally invested in one another. So let's talk about how to actually invite your partner in to a connection night. It's important to recognize that men and women often have naturally different rhythms when it comes to needing physical connection. He may feel a desire for connection more frequently, while she may feel fulfilled with less frequency. And that difference is okay. It's not a problem to fix. It simply means we need to communicate our needs clearly and respectfully. When you start to notice that the connection in the relationship feels a bit low, this is where asking for what you need becomes important. But how and when you ask matters just as much as what you ask. This kind of conversation is best initiated during a structured moment, like a relationship check in. If you haven't yet created that practice, I highly recommend watching one of my earlier episodes on the relationship check-in, where I basically walk you through how to create a weekly space to share needs, align expectations, and celebrate one another's wins. Here's the essential principle of that exercise. You want to approach your partner when they're in a receptive headspace, not when they're distracted or overwhelmed or in the middle of something demanding. Timing matters because even a well intentioned request can fall flat if it's delivered in a non productive time. When you're ready to ask, keep it simple and pressure free. You might say something like, I would love to connect with you physically. Would you be open to having a connection night sometime soon? That phrasing is clear, direct, and welcoming without expectation. Remember, it's just as important to remove the pressure as you make the request. You can reassure your partner that, hey, this doesn't have to lead anywhere, that, our intention is just to simply spend time together, create a calm environment, and perhaps connect physically, no pressure. This helps maintain that safety and openness to make that experience meaningful for both people. It keeps the focus on connection and not a necessary outcome. Now, gentlemen, if you're the one initiating this request, you can bring her a sense of what to expect, if you will. Let her know that you'll take care of the environment, picking a time that works best for her, setting the tone, creating a relaxed space, welcoming her to receive. That helps her feel at ease before the experience even begins. And if you're a woman watching this, you can absolutely ask for a connection night as well. You can invite him into that experience and let him know what helps you feel comfortable and connected. You might even share a few insights or encourage him to watch this episode so he understands how to create that space for you. Regardless of who initiates, if your partner's open to experiencing a connection night, put it on the calendar. Because as we talked about earlier, connection doesn't just fade because something's broken. It fades when it's left unstructured and life swoops in and takes its place. As we bring this episode to a close, it's worth stepping back and recognizing what we've explored today. Connection in a relationship doesn't disappear because something is broken. More often, it fades because it's left unstructured and gradually replaced by the responsibilities and routines and the quiet demands of everyday life. What once felt natural and effortless begins to require intention, and the opportunity is yours for the taking. The connection night is a practice that protects what matters most, creating the environment where emotional safety can be restored, where presence replaces distraction, and where natural chemistry between two people is given the conditions it needs to reemerge. Because at its core, this isn't just about physical intimacy. It's about feeling close to your partner, feeling desired, feeling chosen by them, feeling prioritized, and most importantly, feeling connected in a way that sustains the relationship beyond the logistics of everyday life. When that connection is consistently cultivated, what follows is a relationship drawn by greater patience, deeper understanding, and a level of goodwill that softens the even the inevitable challenges life provides. So the question becomes, how do you start? It begins with awareness, paying attention to the rhythm of your relationship by noticing when that sense of physical or emotional closeness starts to dip. Not as a problem to criticize or suppress, but as a signal, a quiet invitation to re engage with intention. And instead of allowing that need to go unspoken or for it to come out sideways in a passive aggressive comment or distance between the two of you, ask for what you want clearly, respectfully, and directly. Invite your partner into this connection night. Put it on the calendar. Protect the space and begin building the rhythm that supports the relationship you both want to experience. I highly recommend you apply this insight in your relationship. If you'd like to book a complimentary clarity session with me, just to get some further clarity on how to apply this principle, click the link in the description box below. Choose a time that works best for you. Our conversation together will help you navigate what might feel like an awkward moment, whether it's initiating a connection night, asking for support, or simply expressing what you need clearly and confidently. Let's stay connected by remembering that you're not trying to manufacture connection. You're creating the conditions where it can return naturally, consistently, and meaningfully. And when that becomes a practice, you realize that the quality of your relationship is directly shaped by the space you create for it.